Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. On the show tonight, COVID cases surge ahead of Thanksgiving weekend. 2 doctors on booster shots and more. Bears head coach Matt Nagy's job is reportedly on the line amid another lackluster season. How might that impact the team's Thanksgiving matchup against the Lions?
We believe really strongly that art is for everyone, and everyone should be able to have access to this wonderful resource.
And a local art school is taking a big step toward art accessibility with a new pay-as-you-can model. But first, some of today's top stories. Jurors reach a guilty verdict in the murder trial of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery.
Jury verdict form. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty.
Travis McMichael, his father Greg, and neighbor William Roddy Bryan were convicted of killing Arbery, who was fatally shot while being chased through a Georgia neighborhood in February 2020. Defense attorneys for the 3 men claim they were attempting a legal citizen's arrest to detain Arbery as a suspected burglar. They now face a mandatory sentence of life in prison. Following today's verdict, Mayor Lori Lightfoot released a statement that reads in part, quote, "Despite the guilty verdicts as to each defendant and the small measure of closure that these verdicts may hopefully bring his loved ones, nothing will ever bring Ahmaud Arbery back to life. He was killed for no reason other than the color of his skin, and regardless of the accountability that his killers now face, that fact speaks volumes about how far we have yet to go." Chicago is paying homage to the city's first black mayor on the anniversary of his death.
And let us march on.
City leaders and former administration members gathered this morning for an annual wreath-laying ceremony in honor of former Chicago Mayor Harold Washington. Washington died of a heart attack the day before Thanksgiving 34 years ago in 1987. He's buried at Oakwood Cemetery on Chicago's South Side. A 30-year-long Chicago tradition is back for the holidays. The Allstate CTA holiday trains and buses will be traveling all 8 rail lines and 14 routes beginning this Friday through December 22nd. Chicagoans can spot Santa on this CTA fleet and will hear holiday music playing to know their commute ride is approaching. Face masks and regular CTA fares are required to board. And up next, what to know about the recent surge in COVID cases, so please stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and so is a surge of new COVID-19 cases. The state's public health department today reports more than 5,000 new COVID cases since yesterday. The increase in cases in Illinois this fall has now surpassed last summer's Delta variant surge. Health officials are urging residents to take extra precautions as they make plans to gather with family members who may or may not be vaccinated. Joining us to discuss the latest with COVID in Illinois are Dr. Robert Murphy, professor of infectious diseases at Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine. He's also executive director of the Institute for Global Health. And Dr. Susan Bleasdale, medical director of infection prevention and control at UI Health. So welcome both of you back to Chicago Tonight. Dr. Murphy, I ask you this every time you come on. What's driving this latest surge now?
What's driving the surge is a couple things. One is we have the Delta variant still, which is highly contagious. 2, people have gone indoors, they're congregating more, and they're getting a little bit lax in terms of wearing masks and social distancing and doing the things they did earlier in the pandemic. And the main reason is we don't have enough people vaccinated. That is what's driving it. It's a combination of all those things.
And it's been the same case for previous surges. Dr. Bleasdale, where do you think this current surge will peak out, given the fact that lots of people will be together tomorrow and will be traveling over the next week?
I think it's concerning that it's probably going to continue to rise after the holiday, because we saw that last year. And right now we're already hitting a high point, and people gathering, people traveling, just more opportunities for transmission. So people need to be very careful.
And Dr. Murphy, you mentioned those vaccination rates still not high enough. Let's take a look at the numbers from the CDC. 71% of eligible Illinoisans are fully vaccinated. 78% of eligible Illinoisans have at least received one dose. And about 1.7 million booster shots have gone out. So of those eligible Illinoisans, those we presume include kids now 5 and older who are eligible. Robert, does this rate of vaccination at least mean that there is a lower rate of death given the high rate of cases?
Yeah, you look at the number of cases, it's quite clear. If you're unvaccinated, you're 5 times more likely getting infected. And that's why the recommendations now from CDC and from experts in the city and state and nationally, hang around with vaccinated people. Make your crowd, your gathering for Thanksgiving with the vaccinated, because you're 5 times less likely to get infected, just in case one of them is infected. And for mortality, for dying from this thing, it's even greater. It's 13-fold difference. 13 times more likely dying if you're unvaccinated. So the whole key is just getting vaccinated.
And Dr. Bleasdale, perhaps a lot of folks made their Thanksgiving plans before this surge started to rise. What is your recommendation for folks tomorrow? Should they rethink plans to gather with big groups of people?
You really need to think about it because, like Dr. Murphy pointed out, the vaccine is very effective in preventing severe disease, hospitalization, and death. And it does decrease your risk of acquiring it, but it doesn't make it zero. And so if you're going to have a large gathering, there's still a chance that you could get it. And so it's important to choose who you're gathering with. Is there anyone that's vulnerable, even with vaccination? And also afterwards, you want to make sure that you're watching, if you have this gathering, do you have any signs or symptoms of COVID? We find that sometimes people who are vaccinated have very mild disease and they just don't think that they could have COVID. And so it's real important that when you're gathering around a lot of people, it's going to increase that risk, even with vaccine protection, but it's going to keep you from severe disease. So make sure if you have symptoms, get tested afterwards.
And as we mentioned, Dr. Murphy, kids 5 and older are eligible. They have been receiving the vaccine, although most probably have not had their second shot and then waited 2 weeks to be fully vaccinated. So what's your advice to parents of children and gathering for the holiday?
Well, use common sense. Those kids living in households where the parents are vaccinated, the adults in the household are vaccinated, they're at less of a chance. But, we have to get that group that's in preschool and school vaccinated, because that's another pool of unvaccinated people. And that's starting to happen. But I think, if you're careful, just like Dr. Bleasdale said, make sure anyone who's not feeling 100%, they're not to mix with the family. And then if there's any kind of uncertainty at all, you can get an over-the-counter test. You can test everybody coming to your house. If people coming from out of state, or you don't exactly know what their status is. So there's many items in the toolbox, we say, to help keep your risk as low as possible.
And Dr. Bleasdale, it's not just a holiday tomorrow, but many, many Americans are traveling either car, airplane. They will be traveling over the next week. They're going to be indoors for a while, given the fact that we've just started sort of getting into the winter season. So does that portend a surge that's going to go on for a long time?
It has the potential, but I think, there's a requirement on public transportation to be masked. So making sure when you're traveling, wearing that mask in the airport, on the airplane, in the bus station, on the train, that you keep those masks on, because masks are really effective in preventing transmission. So like Dr. Murphy said, we've got tools, right? We've got masks, we've got vaccine, we've got testing, so that we can try to control this. We just have to choose wisely, and we have to be careful. And especially for people that are very vulnerable, they're going to take extra precautions when they're gathering with others or not gathering with others. So being cautious, and those that are unvaccinated, be extra cautious. Choose who you gather with, keep your masks on, because those that are unvaccinated are the people that are at the highest risk for hospitalization and dying from this. And so it's real important to be careful when you're gathering.
And Dr. Murphy, we mentioned at the top that 1.7 million people have received their third booster shot. What do Americans need to know about boosters and their efficacy?
Well, it's quite clear that even if you've had your 2 shots of the vaccine, this is for the Moderna and Pfizer, the protective effect wears off. It starts wearing off as little as 4 months into it and significantly at 6 months. You have to keep up with the vaccines, unfortunately, because the protection just wanes over time. So get those boosters. We don't know if you're going to have to have a booster every 6 months. It might not be that long. It could be 1 year. We're new to this whole thing. But you need the booster now, 6 months after your vaccine. And if you have the Johnson & Johnson, it's just 2 months after your shot.
And I was going to ask you that, Dr. Bleasdale, are we going to have to get boosters in perpetuity here, or are there therapeutics or other treatments that might come on the market to limit that?
Right. There are therapeutics that are probably going to help. We're probably going to have some change in our booster that may be adapted to the current variant if we have any changes. Right now, it's still primarily the Delta variant. And I would emphasize that the boosters are helpful. They're most helpful for those that are over 65 because it's those individuals that your immune system is just not as robust. That's why we do things like give a high-dose flu shot for those individuals. But the boosters are available for everyone 18 and over. They are still showing protection, though, against severe disease at this point for many that have already been vaccinated and not boosted right now. So it's, again, just an additional measure of protection. Also want to make sure people do get their flu shot, too, because it's flu season, and we are seeing the flu across the country right now. So important that you get your flu shot and don't gather if anyone has any illness, COVID or otherwise.
All right, a lot to consider as people prepare to gather for the holiday tomorrow. And happy Thanksgiving to both of you. Our thanks to Dr. Robert Murphy and Dr. Susan Bleasdale.
Thanks for having us.
Great Thanksgiving.
And up next, we visit a tuition-free art school just south of the city. But first, we take a look at the weather.
Spend Saturday evening with the Voices of Chicago. Latino Voices at 6 and Black Voices at 6:30. See you on Saturdays.
Next spring, an art school just south of the city says it'll be the first of its kind, offering tuition-free art classes for emerging and developing artists of all ages. Arts correspondent Angel Ito takes us to a ceramics class at the Hyde Park Art Center to give us a look at how it's making art more accessible for everyone.
People look out for you here.
When you're here, you're family. That's how art student Sheila Clay at the Hyde Park Art Center describes her experience and says that's what keeps her coming back.
It enriches your soul and your spirit, and it takes your mind off of anything else that's worrying you or anything like it relaxes you. It keeps you mentally focused and away from anything that you might be worried about. You can get clarity here. And the beautiful workers and the staff and the people here, they show interest in everything, and they're very supportive. And I just love that. It makes me happy, and I'm supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be sitting at home.
It's a plan nearly 5 years in the making with the help of the Art Center's $15 million Art Makes Capital campaign. Now, through the help of donors, the Art Center will be able to offer a pay-as-you-can option for all of their art classes. From painting and drawing to textile classes to photography, nothing is off limits.
We don't like to say the only because we hope other places will follow suit, but as far as we know, this will be the first tuition-free art school for folks of all ages to participate in the country. This model will allow us to run classes more consistently, offer new classes that we may not have been able to offer before, so it's going to be very supportive of our teaching artist community.
Now, this includes teaching artists like Malika Jackson. I sat in on her ceramics course course for seniors, many of who are on scholarship, a benefit that will continue under the Art Makes campaign.
Everyone should have the opportunity to create, and no one should be limited, and it shouldn't be because you don't have the funds that you don't have access. You're just going to smooth it out with your rib. Don't use any more sponge. Through the arts, the children and people can express themselves, and you can see a lot of where the person might need help, through what they do and what they say visually. They're open more, so they're more free to talk to you about what they're going through without being put on the spot.
Veda Fengi, a visually impaired student who utilizes their scholarships, agrees.
I don't think I could have taken this class without the financial help. They help me create the things that I'm seeing in my head that I can't really see what I'm doing.
Aside from a few niche experimental classes, the Art Makes campaign will also support artist residency programs, exhibitions, and other art events hosted by the center.
It allows people from all sorts of walks of life, all different diversities to be able to come together in a space and make meaning together, be creative together, build relationships with one another, in addition to being able to build their art skill set.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Angel Ito.
The Hyde Park Art Center will continue to offer financial aid and its pay-as-you-can method for certain art classes until spring 2022, when the payment method becomes available for all art classes. Registration for winter courses begins November 30th, and you can visit our website for more information on how to sign up. And up next, James Big Cat Williams offers his take on Coach Nagy's future with the Chicago Bears. But first, a look at some events happening this weekend. Before you sit down for turkey tomorrow, there's a turkey of a football game to sink your teeth into. We refer, of course, to the 3-7 Bears versus the 0-9-1 Lions. But whatever takes place on the field is dwarfed right now by the confusion surrounding the entire organization. Various reports paint a picture of a head coach about to be out of a job and questions of whether there is any competence at all in the upper management of the organization. And joining us with more is James Big Cat Williams, former offensive lineman for the Chicago Bears from 91 to 2002. Big Cat, always great to see you. So you've seen these reports. The one report says Nagy's been informed he'll be out of a job after tomorrow's game. And today, reports saying George McCaskey told the team none of that's true. What's your sense of what's going on over there at Hallis Hall?
Hey, Bears, how are you? I just don't know, man. I mean, over the years, things have gotten so weird up at Hallis Hall that you just don't know what's truth and what's fiction when people talk, when people are actually talking at Hallis Hall. You just don't know what's going on. We heard all the crazy things yesterday about, Nagy being fired after the Detroit game. And why would you let that leak out? I can understand them not responding to it right away, but it just seemed to drag on when it didn't need to.
Yeah, I mean, and if it was false, you'd think that they would have responded right away and not wait 24 hours. So as a player, how difficult is it right now to prepare for a game amid all this confusion?
That is an interesting question because, you think back to when the Bears played the Vegas Raiders and the turmoil that they had going on. And it wasn't nearly as public as the Nagy thing is right now. So you've got to think that it's affecting the players mentally, but, we have to ask, how is it affecting their practices? Because, Coach Nagy's going through a lot right now, and you heard that, he let them go after a walkthrough and, canceled a meeting and things like that. So you've got to wonder how prepared are they going to actually be going into this game in Detroit.
And, you know, the Bears' record is not good. Nagy has been on the hot seat, but does it make sense to fire someone in the middle of the season and then tell them, by the way, you got to coach this game and then you're going to be fired no matter what?
Yeah, I don't see how you do that because, you know, I've heard a few people talk to a few people. The thing that is interesting is if you did tell him that, you know, now he is going into a nationally broadcast football game and having the opportunity to get his point across, to get his side across. And all that's going to do is, if they did tell him, all that's going to do is make the Bears look really bad.
No doubt about it. Yeah, in Sports Radio, they're talking today that each coaching staff meets with the broadcast crew. In this case, it's Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, and they get to talk, and Nagy can tell them whatever he wants. You know, the conventional wisdom is he is gone at some point, whether during the season, after the season, and then you're left with a general manager who has a lot of questions, and you're also left with a team president and a team chairman that have also not had success on their watch over and over and over again. So what should Bears fans be expecting?
I know what Bears fans want. I know what I think I know what Bears fans want, and I think I know what a lot of just people in general want. They want them to, you know, blow it up, get rid of everybody, start all over fresh. But you know, you still get into the same questions as far as, if you do get rid of all these people, if you get rid of Pace, if you get rid of Nagy, if you get rid of Phillips, who are the people, who are going to be the people that are hiring the next group of people that are coming in? You know, and I think that's been the problem over the years is no one has any confidence in the people that are in the building now to bring in anyone that is going to actually help the organization.
Certainly, a lot of fans bringing, again, I was listening to Sports Radio, a lot of fans calling and saying they just don't have confidence from the very top at this organization just because of too many years of bungles and bad decision-making. Let's talk about the game. Justin Fields isn't going to play. He's nursing some rib injuries. What do you expect out of the offense with Andy Dalton?
Well, I mean, it goes back to what you and I talked about earlier. You know, how prepared are they? The one thing that you need on this team now is a veteran presence, a presence that can say, they can sit back and tell the team, look, I know things on the outside are not going well right now, but not only for our livelihoods, but for everyone around us, their livelihoods, we have to go out there and we have to perform. You know, they are being paid to perform, so they have to figure out a way on Thursday morning to get up, go out there and handle their business, take care of their jobs. You know, I'd assume that we're going to see the same offense that we have seen, the offense that is only averaging 16.1 points per game. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the reason why they're needing to clean house. So I don't know how much things can change in a matter of 3 or 4 days. And
then you have a defense that 2 weeks in a row gave up a big winning touchdown drive because of some big miscues. What's going on with that defense, and can they get it straight against Detroit?
Yeah, I think when you're considering the defense, you're talking about a defense that is riddled with injuries. And I think that is starting to rear its ugly head. We talk about the misassignments and miscommunications in the secondary. You know, for as much as we got on Eddie Jackson about his tackling and his poor performances, he might have been the glue that was holding that secondary together. So now you have to simplify things so guys know exactly what they have to do on every single play. It might not be pretty, but at least you have guys playing at full speed if it's a little simpler. Right now, guys are just thinking too much, making too many mistakes, and playing slow.
And the Lions are the worst. They have the worst record in football, but do you worry about a team that's hungry, especially given it's national TV and the Bears are in turmoil?
Yeah, well, you've got to imagine that in Detroit's mind right now, they're thinking, look, this is our best opportunity to get a win right now. The Bears are in shambles from the top to the bottom. They're not playing well, and they're coming to us on Thanksgiving. And Detroit is always a difficult place to play on Thanksgiving, especially if they can find a way to get a crowd in there.
And just a couple seconds left, your fearless prediction for tomorrow.
All right, I'm going with the Bears. I think the veteran presence will help them pull it together, but we're only going with 17-13 win, possibly.
All right, well, that'll be something for national audiences to feast on before they eat their turkey. James Big Cat Williams, happy Thanksgiving to you, and thanks so much for joining us.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Paris. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Thanks very much. And we're back to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabee family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Stay tuned now for Jay's Chicago. And please join us tomorrow night at 7 for a special Thanksgiving Day show hosted by Phil Ponce. A look at a new call for land-based reparations to indigenous Americans, plus how inflation and supply chain issues are impacting access to food. And now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you so much for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford